Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Friday, January 31st, 2025. As the nation breathes a sigh of relief, at least in one regard, and that means ostriches. The ostriches on the farm, Universal Ostrich Farm in British Columbia, will live to fight another day or 30 days, as the case may be. The injunction was granted at federal court today. Kari Simpson from SaveOurOstriches.com is coming on in just a couple of seconds to talk about it. The Shadow at Night live stream, as always, is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.com. Recover Muscle Cream. Introducing Redefining Strength, where energy meets purpose. Are you tired of battling muscle soreness after intense workouts or long days? Are you in a search of a solution that provides unparalleled comfort and relaxation? CanadaNanoSilver.com proudly presents Recover Silver Biotics Revolutionary Muscle Cream, designed to be your powerful ally in soothing tired muscles and helping you to conquer each day with ease. Recover is not just another muscle cream, it's the next generation of muscle relief crafted with cutting-edge technology and premium ingredients. Recover offers a level of comfort and rejuvenation that you've never experienced before. Whether you're an athlete pushing your limits, a weekend warrior, or someone facing the daily grind, Recover is here to support you every step of the way. It is available on the website at CanadaNanoSilver.com. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.com. Also, retail locations all across the country, over 30 to choose from. You can hit the retail locations tab for that. And if you would like to become a retailer or just have a question about the products, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab on the website, CanadaNanoSilver.com. All right, quickly, some hellos tonight. Who's here watching on a Friday night? And guys, I got to be honest with you. I wasn't going to do a show tonight, but then two things, ostriches and tariffs. And so I thought, better go on and break the news. There's good news and there's bad news tonight. Hello, Judy, watching from somewhere on Facebook tonight. Don't know where you're watching from, but hello, Judy. Tony is watching on X from Calgary. Hello, Darren. Hello, Brenda. Lynn is watching from rural northeastern Ontario tonight. Hello, Ron from Wynyard, Saskatchewan. Suzanne is watching tonight. Sheila from Oshawa. Hello, Carol. God is great. Yes, absolutely. Tracy is watching tonight in Black Falls, Alberta. JJ is watching in Waterton Park, Alberta. Alex is watching in Guelph, Ontario on Facebook. Who's on Rumble tonight? Who's watching on Rumble? Patricia, Susie Q57, Jimmy James, Esky Dogs, Mar Hart, Uniacke, Crivier, Sam Orr, Lies That Bind, Gary Goodman, Tammy O'Kid, all you guys, I appreciate you very much. Thank you for being here tonight. Don't forget to like, hang on just a second. Got a problem with my background. Let me just see if I can fix this here. That's a little bit better. Don't forget to like and share. Very important information we're getting out to people here. And there are people right now out there we consider normies who are just waking up from a very long slumber, and they're not liking what they see, but they don't know exactly what the reason is. And we can provide them with that here every single night. That's why I ask you guys to like and share the Shadow at Night live stream every weeknight at 8 o'clock Central. Here is our friend Kari Simpson from SaveOurOstriches.com. Hello, Kari. It's been a heck of a week, I'm sure.
It has been like the longest week, I think, of my life. And I've had a few long weeks, Shadow, but it's ending well.
You were on with Katie on Sunday night, both very concerned about what was going to happen. You went through the order and then the rescindment of the order and then the reestablishment of the order that came, I think, 6 days apart at the beginning of this month. And then it was a matter of getting the word out to as many people as you possibly could about what the heck is going on at Universal Ostrich Farms. Have you been surprised at the incredible surge of support that you guys have received?
It has been overwhelming, Shadow. I mean, Canadians are good and they rally, but I think, ironically, one of the things that the COVID times has taught Canadians, and that's how to pull together and get the job done. And in this case, there was, this wall that the federal government was facing of people, and it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that didn't faze them. that didn't do anything. But I do think that the fact that when we were on in court today and that Zoom call was full of concerned Canadians, that sent a very clear message to the court anyway. And clearly the publicity and clearly, we talked about this last time on your show, the people powered grapevine where your viewers and followers are concerned, right? And I think this is a great story from a whole bunch of different angles. It's what people can do when they come together and are focused. And, I have to say, this team of people that pulled together, crackerjack extraordinaires, night and day. These people were, 4:00 in the morning, 2:00 in the morning, getting social media, pulling clips apart, creating graphics, writing letters, putting together technology so people could just do one click and blast every MP with just one letter. There's some hot shots involved in this. And, like I say, for all of this to come together in a week, and then, of course, the amazing and wonderful support of people like yourself, Wayne Peters, the list goes on, getting the information out and to audiences that actually do something, quite often, I say, well, the world is watching. In this case, the world was not only watching, they were doing something. And that was the difference, right? And so it's been just a privilege to watch this unfold. And thankfully, things went well today.
You have been involved in a lot of this kind of thing, rallying people. That's what you do. That's what you've been doing for 25 years in British Columbia. And I'm not sure if you've ever done it in such a short period of time. When did you first become involved with this? We covered this briefly on Sunday night, but we didn't go into detail about it. You heard about this at the beginning of January, right?
Not even that. Don't I wish? that would have given me a little bit of lead time. I should have known. I get called upon often to help various endeavors and issues and concerns and problems and such. And when this one came, I was getting a lot of people saying, Kari, you have to help the ostriches, right? And, as I've said before, I'm very cautious.
Okay, let me stop you for a second. When you first heard that, when you very first heard that, you got to help the ostriches. Did you say, what the hell are you even talking about?
My eyes did roll. Well, you know what? No, I knew a little bit about the Canadian Food Inspection Agency because of the work I did to warn people about Trudeau hunting down every animal on every piece of property in Canada, right? So I had talked to the farmers. I knew about the cullings and, the abuse of the bureaucrats in this matter. But, I never in my wildest dreams believed it would be the ostriches and that they would actually want to cull 400 ostriches. And maybe that goes to how little intelligence there is, because anyone would know that this is going to be a public relations nightmare. For me, it's going, hallelujah, it doesn't get better than this, right? But
yeah.
No, I did, and of course you have to be careful. You have to, when I do help these people, I put them through their paces because I'm not going to jeopardize the credibility that I have.
Well, you got to make sure that they're on the level, right?
Absolutely.
That's the first thing.
So I got wind of this probably 9 days ago when I first started it. And then I literally spent a day and a half reviewing paperwork because the paperwork just started coming in because you need to see all the orders. You need to see everything you're dealing with, right? And then it was, get in the gate and that starter gun went off and we went fast because there isn't a whole bunch of time. Everything is stacked and rigged against the farmer or the person having to execute or slaughter their animals. And, time, you don't have time. You can't give proper notice because you don't even have that much notice sometimes. Like courts always want 2 weeks notice. You have to serve the other side. Then they have to have time to respond. All of that, just you can't, do it that way, right? So,
Kari, how do you go about getting an emergency injunction like this in such a short period of time? What we've seen over the past 4 or 5 years now is these courts move so slow. And for you guys to be able to get in there today, the federal court You got in there today. I mean, like, I think that is absolutely amazing. What kind of pressure did you have to put on?
Well, starting the beginning of this week, we notified the Department of Justice. We said, look, we're doing battle here. We're going to fight this. And then we started, trying to get in contact with the federal court. But I'm not going to go into that now, but I think we have a lot of problems on the staffing front of our judiciary at this point, Shadow, because they didn't get back to us. They didn't tell us whether they had a judge. We did not know until this morning that we were rocking and rolling today, right? So you have to have your documents filed. So that, that means people have to swear affidavits. Then you have to have them scanned. Then you need copies to the other party. This is no small endeavor when you launch a legal action, let alone one this quickly. So a judge made themselves available. I think in this case, we don't know all the background on it, but clearly there was some special accommodation made for this by the federal court. So
I have to say to you, like, because I've been hounding you all week too, right? Like, Kari, any word? I gave you a couple days though. I gave you Monday, Tuesday, because I thought nothing's going to happen Monday, Tuesday, and finally on Wednesday it was like, and so you did get back to me, to your credit, even as busy as you were. And yesterday you said we're going to be in court tomorrow. Maybe the federal court, maybe the Supreme Court, depending on availability of judges. I mean, and this was about 2:30 or 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon Central Time, and I thought, kind of cutting it close, not through any fault of yours, but
no, that's the time frame that we had to work with, right? I mean, I had to find lawyers. Once the family came to me, I thought, and then you don't have lawyers that have expertise in this, Shadow, because as most people who've even tried to do anything on this front will tell you, there's no win. So right now we're sitting with this win. High up representatives and some very large organizations affiliated with livestock, poultry, and such is going, how the hell did you guys do this, right? So this is not only a life-saving win for those ostriches, it's a huge win for the farmers and the livestock producers across Canada. So,
well, there were two reasons for the win in the court document that you sent me, and one of them was the uniqueness of the farm and the animals on it. Correct?
Correct. And we also raised the jurisdictional question, a constitutional question as well, right? And you think about it, is who, we have the British Columbia Public Health Authority, and then you have the Canadian Health Authority. Who really rules this roost? Excuse the pun. I know it just never ends. When all this is, we're just gonna all sit down one night and have this Zoom when we probably have a little bit too much champagne, I hope, and just let it all fly. You can't help it, right?
Rim shot, boom.
So the judge was intrigued. I mean, this is a novel case, and we knew that was going to be extremely helpful for us.
Maybe that's why the judge made himself available. He looks at it and goes, ostriches, I got to hear this.
Well, I would. If I was one of those proof people, I would have said in a heartbeat, right? So
when this news came out, I'm going to say mid-afternoon today, it was leaked slowly. There were some people posting about it on social media. You told me, I got it out to as many people as I could, and then I said you were going to be on the show tonight, so there's several people watching right now. But what happens next? I mean, there's people saying that this is a win. It's a small win. So yeah. You've got 30 days. What needs to be done still?
Well, I first want to go back to when I got the call. So I was the first one to know from the lawyers, right? And, these lawyers, Michael Carter, he has just put heart and soul, his legal team, the researchers, this is not just a small effort. This was the coming together, not only of legal minds, but scientific mind, Shadow. We had scientists just reach out to us and say, what do you need? I was on a Zoom call with, these just top Canadian scientists from all fields. And what can we do to help? What do you need? Do you need expert reports? And we ended up using 2 of them for expert reports, and they just worked all night on these things. I mean, I know because I know I got it for editing at 4:00 in the morning, right? Just to have a look at what's going on here, right? Just this amazing thing. So when the lawyer called me, you just steel yourself, right? Because you're ready for that really bad news. We all knew going into this, no matter who I talked to, Kari, this is, a long shot. This is uphill. This is, the CFAA has power, statutory power. And so when Michael called me, and I don't think at that moment he even had fully registered. He just knew he had to call me right away, right? Because that's what happens, right? And I think it just took a minute before it actually sunk in that we won, right? When he started reading some of the language, which is very helpful for other matters involving science and situations. And so then we brought Katie and her mom on the phone. I said, okay, I'll merge the calls, right? And, they were they were ready to have to just start saying goodbye to their birds. I mean, for Michael and legal team and myself, we're used to doing wars, but for them, they just knew this call would probably mean that they had to say goodbye to their birds, right? And so it was one of those calls that will forever be, just right there in my mind. And when I need to think of something really neat, I'll just go to that moment. So what it means now, so this is just round 1. So all the people that have been rallying behind this is just a stay of execution, if we can use that term. So we have 30 days now to do what's called judicial review, and that's to review the decisions that CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, has based this on, right? Did they really look at what was going on? Do they have enough to make sure that this conduct or this order was justifiable? Those kinds of things. So,
are you going to be allowed, or Katie and her mom going to be allowed to do their own testing now? Because they weren't before, according to that order.
Yeah, no, at this point, we're just waiting for some clarification on things, Shadow. What would be helpful at this point would be for, and I put another letter out. I haven't sent it to you this morning. I told Paul McKinnon, he is the president of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So this is a weird creature, this CFIA. It's not a ministry. It falls under the Minister of Health and the Minister of Agriculture and Agro-Foods, but it's its own entity, and it's powerful. It doesn't have any accountability. It can do whatever it wants to. And, when I started doing the backgrounds on the people governing this, there's not many scientifically inclined minds at the top of that, right? Put it this way, if Donald Trump saw what we had here, I think he would send some of his his people to clean up the mess, right? Wow. And then I've uncovered a few other things that we'll do a show on it, because it'll just, for instance, did you know that ducks since 2023 have not been allowed into Canada since 2023 because of fear of avian flu? And I have
what? Wait a minute. Hold on. How do you stop ducks from
slaughter ducks? This is food ducks. So the avian flu, if you cook meat and stuff, there's no possible contagion to a person. So I find this transcript from the Committee of Agriculture meeting with the Vice President of Policy and Programs for Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And he actually has a bit of background in science. And these MPs are going after him. What's taken so long? Why can't you make decisions? The industry is suffering. You're costing them money. Oh, yeah, well, we're making a report. We're going to have a report soon. It's been since 2023. Then he says, one of the MPs challenges him on the science, and he says, here we're always open to researching a new science. And I'm thinking, oh, this is just nonsense. Not from my viewpoint, buddy.
I don't like when science is used as a political tool. Like, it's either settled or, oh no, we're always open to hearing more what you have to say. I mean, whatever is convenient for them, right?
Unless you're the ostriches, then we don't want to know.
Hey, did you've seen that health bureaucrats leaked Zoom call, right? The one with Theresa Tam and Bonnie Henry. Is that going to be useful at all?
It is very useful. As a matter of fact, I'm going to transcribe it because I think what it shows, I mean, Theresa Tam, it shows them setting up and how they bring this crises about. There's really no crises, but we're going to prepare for it. And then we're going to start looking at things like, oh, barn cats could spread this, right? That we have to be very afraid of that. People who pasteurize milk, those dairies aren't going to be a problem, but those raw milkers, they're going to be really problematic. And of course, Theresa Tam then declares that she doesn't even eat cheese. So because she's so afraid. I mean, these are the people leading our health organizations.
Well,
right?
At the end of it, too, there's something very damning that Bonnie Henry says, right? And then chuckles.
So we had a very disturbing case here. She decided that the mink farmers were super spreaders of the COVID virus. So she ordered all the mink to be culled. Then there are 2 mink cases. And actually, after rewatching that, Wayne Peters reminded me of it. I actually pulled those cases, Shadow, because she's laughing when the court did not hear them, right? And again, when I look at the decisions, and it's only been just glance, I haven't studied them yet. Clearly, they're still doing the, judicial notice, rubber stamp, anything related to COVID will just defer or acquiesce to whatever the health authorities say. And that has to stop. And, regrettably, lawyers can't spank these judges, but I sure can. And I think maybe it's time that we started watching, having a judicial watch and really exposing the problematic ones that don't, apply the rule of law or the merits of a case that are presented to them. So
is there still a convoy heading to the farm tomorrow, or has that been canceled now?
No, I think that they're all heading still, and it sounds like it's going to be one heck of a party. So if anyone wants
that's what I was thinking, right? Here's the website. It's bcrising.ca, saveourostriches.com, and the convoy to Edgewood, it's still on there tomorrow morning, bright and early. They're leaving at 6:45 from Kelowna, and then
I lost you. So I don't know where Shadow went, but I don't know. Somebody's gonna have to tell me in chat. Can you still hear me? Because we'll just have to keep going on.
Did I just leave the screen?
Okay, I just took over for you, Shadow.
Did you? Thank you.
I thought you were jumping on the convoy and heading to Edgewood. Like, the heck with the show.
Right. No, I don't know. What the heck? I think I got the fat fingers today, and I pushed the wrong button and poof, completely nuked myself out of the screen.
I'm asking the audience, can you guys hear me? Because he's gone.
The Kari Simpson Show. Convoy to Edgewood. Here we are. So it's tomorrow morning. There's 2 of them from Kelowna and from Vernon, and they're leaving at 6:45 from Kelowna and then at 7:40 from Vernon. So you can get this information at bcrising.ca/saveourostriches. That's great to see. How are Katie and her mom doing? Are they relieved? Are they going to get some sleep finally? Or
sleep will be nice for all of us. That's God help anyone who wakes me up too early tomorrow. I've heard from them probably 4 or 5 times, and I think it's just initial shock and then relief, and then it's, oh my gosh, real relief, and then it's it's a huge emotional roller coaster, Shadow, because you're so happy, yet you still know that there's a war ahead of us, right? So we can't let down our guard. The fight is not over. We just have a bit of a breather here, 2 days maybe. But we're going to be back at it hard. And we're going to take full advantage of this opportunity to make sure what we can do. What really needs to be done is changes to the policies with regard to CFIA. And, I'm happy to report, and I think this is the other maybe unique aspect out of this, is people took initiative here. They didn't just wait. People just jumped in and took initiative on things. Even, people like our former Attorney General for British Columbia, Susan Anton. I get, Kari, what do you have? Can you give me the documents? And she's just been out on the social media platforms giving her. Now what's happened is a number of high-ranking advisors to certain political parties, some politicians have now asked to meet with scientists that will actually give them sort of the insight on what's going on here, what needs to be done. I've invited the stakeholders, whether it's, the beef ranchers, the poultry people. They've been seeing these problems for years. I mean, I look at them from just an overview. They've been living and breathing the problems. So tell me what needs to be changed. We have a window to do something really good here. I told
Do you think there's a chance at setting a precedent, Kari?
I think they're going to back out, Shadow, before we get to court again. I don't think they're going to give us that opportunity, but somebody has to be accountable for what's gone on here. And these politicians, so I wrote a very pointed letter to the president of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So my second letter, I'm always fair. You get one shot.
I read it on the show the other night. I know how pointed it was.
Yeah, so you should see the one that went out this morning.
Oh.
It's like, dude, I've kept your name out of the fray so far, but now it's a very different thing. People can go after elected politicians, but rarely do we go after the top bureaucrats who are really responsible for what's going on here. I've done this enough to know that, bureaucrats in some cases, I'm not saying this is the case, but I've seen it often, they actually lie to the ministers. Ministers come and go, bureaucrats are there forever. And, there seems to be quite a few that time being from the Privy Council as well. So these are not people that are in the science field. These are people that are in the business of being in
government.
Yeah.
Deep state, man. That's what they are. And as you say, lying to ministers. I mean, this is something that needs to be weeded out. Trump is doing it in the States. I don't see why we can't do it here.
We don't have a choice. It has to be done if we want to move forward in this, and you brought, I was kind of laughing at, first of all, the products, that help support this show, the Recover. I'm going, do they have something for my brain?
They're working on it.
And then you bring on the show because we've got ostriches and tariffs. I was at the point where, and I could get access. I was going to call Donald Trump and say, President Trump, we need 55% tariffs on Canadian goods until they free the ostriches. I think he would have liked that.
I'm sure he would have liked hearing the story. Anyway, Kari, thank you for all the work that you've been doing. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us and update us on everything that's been happening. Is there anything more that people can do to help?
Stay in tune. I mean, we have legal fees, you guys. As I say, this is not over yet, right? This is, we will wait and see, and you'll be among the first to know if they withdraw or what, as we change course on this, if we change course. I think at this point, there's going to be a lot of pivots. We'll see. I've invited the top brass within CFIA and government to meet with us and talk about what can be done to bring about a better response to people, farmers, and livestock holders. When situations like this happen, they lose credibility, Shadow, right? And that's not a good thing for an agency that's in charge of, taking supposedly care of us. So
do you think they care anymore about, like every agency, federally speaking, and this is a federal agency, has lost credibility so bad over the past 5 years. I don't think they care anymore, truly.
Well, I don't think they ever cared. I think, but until they're made to care, right? And, I've often said that lots of times I get my way with government not because their hearts are in it, but because I become the bigger problem. And if that motivates them to do what's right, I'm okay with that. They don't have to be motivated by the right thing. They just have to do the right thing. And I can help them with that.
If CFIA does back out and they don't want to go back to court, that's a good news for the ostrich farm, right? I mean, they're just going to capitulate and say, all right, we're going to leave you guys alone. And then the first thing you have to ask yourself is, well, why were you so adamant about it in the first place? So good news for the ostrich farm, but not so great for, as you were saying, all of the other chicken farmers and beef farmers in BC, because no precedent gets set.
Well, you know what, though? There's this wonderful decision that this wonderful Justice Bastille did that says, we have some constitutional questions that come here. So he actually expanded the issues that are before the court by acknowledging that these issues are valuable and we need to sort them out. So even if the ostriches become safe and CFIA decides to make them a living laboratory and all the things it should do, there are still issues before the court here that I think we can keep it, as live issues moving forward, as long as, we can fight those battles on behalf of all the farmers and such, right?
It sounds like this Justice Bastille may have been on your side a little bit here. I'm saying, not saying that he's not impartial or anything. And by the way, I love that name, Bastille. It's Bastille Day in Canada.
Well, though, I think the more clever, independent thinking justices are looking at the state of things on all that science front. I mean, they can't help it after looking at the total absurdity is how the courts handled and continue to handle the COVID issues, right? And I think for those people who see, one of the things that this argument brought in to full light is that there may be a better way of doing public health, right? We know now vaccines wane, they lose their efficacy. We know that antibiotics, superbugs get built up. And so anybody who has been in the past engaged in any kind of, issues involving, a lot of science or a lot of medical procedures and drugs and those kinds of things is looking at this and going, why wouldn't we take advantage of this? Maybe these ostriches can help us learn about natural immunity, about how the mutations work and how their bodies adapt. It is such a brilliant opportunity that we have. And I hope that those people in power have the ability to see that.
Getting back to the judges, as you say, I mean, we think of these judges a lot of times as these guys, they sit on this bench way above us and they judge us. They're judges, right? But they don't live in a vacuum. They are human beings like everybody else. They put their pants on the same way we do, hopefully. And they must have seen some of these confirmation hearings that have been going on in the United States in the last couple of days with people like Kash Patel and RFK Jr., who both have been called conspiracy theorists by the Democrats. But, I mean, you've got other side Republican senators who are standing up and saying, no, we just want to ask questions. Why are you so against listening to the other side and hearing the questions they have and then trying to formulate some kind of an answer? And I would submit that if they haven't seen this stuff, what are they doing in their spare time? I mean, this is kind of top of the list here when it comes to news stuff, yeah?
Well, one would think, Shadow, but willful blindness and not knowing, I mean, it's a pretty comfortable gig being a judge in Canada, right? And as you know, and maybe it's time that I probably expose a little bit more of the information I have now. There's growing concerns that I have, for instance, with the National Judicial Institute. So all judges in Canada have to pay into this National Judicial Institute, where it used to be about learning how to administer your court. So good ways to write decisions, technology, that kind of thing. But now they've gone over to the culture side. So they bring in people like Princess Darnell to indoctrinate judges about how many genders there are, right? They are hiring their own climate scientists in anticipation of more climate cases. So the judiciary is going to have their own team of climate scientists. That's completely inappropriate.
Totally.
Um, I have a quote from Justice Chief Wagner on the 2030 agenda, and how it's up to judges to usher this in, because governments can be slow and judges have the ability to end poverty. Like,
And that is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada.
Right.
That guy. Like,
yeah. And
no.
So they're very misguided in what but so who's going to bring them back on track? It's going to be the yous and eyes of this world, because, anyone that's in law, practicing law, the minute you challenge a judge in that capacity, you're going to be hauled up before the Law Society. You're going to be shut down and silenced, right? So it's going to take, outside agencies like what you and I do, and to hold them up to public scrutiny. I think if you were to ask, and I think that has been asked, confidence in Canadian judges is not very high. So public trust is essential to our civil society. It's time we started dealing with that now.
Kari, thank you for all your good and difficult work this past week, and fast too. I mean, you managed to do it in record time, and good luck with everything going forward. Please keep in touch with us and let us know what the heck's going on with all this.
As always, and deeply, deeply appreciate you and your great group of people that lended us a hand in this. Thank you, everybody.
That's our pleasure. Thank you, Kari. We'll talk to you again soon.
Night.
Okay, bye-bye. There is Kari Simpson, SaveOurOstriches.com. Oh, we referenced the video of these medical bureaucrats, including Bonnie Henry and Theresa Tam, which was leaked, Zoom call. It was leaked last summer, I believe it was. Would you guys like to see that? Okay, here.
We don't have a protocol, to be honest, to be escalating in the time of prevention, as I said, but things can be done, it can be done, and test some of these structures out.
And we need to have a communication strategy. The first positive milk, there may not be a lot of outrage in Quebec, but there's certainly a lot of interest in the BC because of the high path AI in poultry that we've been through in the last 2 years. So it's on people's minds. If we have a positive milk, people will want to know that we know what it's about and that we're on it and that we're watching and that we're working together. So to me, that's the most important thing we need in the short term.
I think in some ways, people are thinking, oh, wow, it's only pasteurized samples and we expect it to be negative. Well, there will be the odd thing, the unexpected. So we'll sort of press on with that with our colleagues. And I keep telling people, I feel I'm more worried than they are. I'm not sure. Maybe it's all hidden underneath. But I prefer to.
They are discussing
some of these
preventative measures,
out.
you guys. They are
And
discussing.
we need to have
hang
a
on just a second. They're discussing
there will
preventative.
be.
That video won't stop. They're discussing preventative measures for this avian H5N1 flu. And once we get closer to the end, this is about 3 minutes long, this video. Once we get closer to the end, watch Bonnie Henry. She's in the top row, second from the right-hand side.
The odd thing, the unexpected. So we'll sort of press on with that with our colleagues. And I keep telling people, I feel I'm more worried than they are. I'm not sure. Maybe it's all hidden underneath. But I prefer to be much more forward-leaning and maybe anticipate that something is positive in Canada. And we can manage it, as long as we, set it out with a degree of thoughtfulness. Yes, and then we should sort of, again, have a bit of a focus on the raw milk people, because that's probably, dealing with the pasteurized bit is fine. I think this might actually go fairly smoothly, but then we probably need a discussion on how to address all the people who are, counter anti-pasteurization. And then let's go, I know nothing about cheese. I don't eat cheese, but apparently goat milk products are, more frequently unpasteurized. Slightly scary as well. And then there's all the other layers of surveillance that we thought might be useful for the other mammals, swine, etc. Right? But the animal health people are not quite as interested as we are, and it may be in the research domain that we're going to be examining the swine and other relevant farm and farm animals in particular. Yes, the cats don't do well. Do not feed your cats with raw milk products. I don't know who messages on that, but I also know that there's a gap. We always seem somehow left with holding the bag, as it were, on the pets. So I'm assuming farm cats are pets. So we do have to think about that as well in terms of messaging. Yes, there's a whole other.
Can I add one other thing? Sorry, Teresa.
Yes.
On a positive note, we shut down mink farms in BC, as you may know. Ontario, be aware, you still have them, and they launched a lawsuit against us that was just thrown out yesterday. So.
They launched a lawsuit against us that was just thrown out yesterday. Yeah. So Kari is well aware of that. And they will be using that going forward. I don't know what to wish for here when it comes to this situation with Universal Ostrich Farm. Because if the CFIA does decide they want to go to court and fight this, they're going to bring everything they've got. And Kari mentioned earlier how powerful this agency is with no accountability whatsoever. But it doesn't look like they're going to win this thing. But they could. And if they do, that will give them free rein, if you'll pardon the expression, to go around killing whatever animals they want to kill. They're talking about minks, they're talking about cattle, and it's all based on this H5N1 nonsense that the birds are going to infect the cows or the minks or whatever animal that they decide is going to be infected. And then, of course, it's going to come over to us. But that hasn't happened. At least not yet. Not in any great extent. We've heard, one case of H5N1 in Canada? Maybe 1, 2 in the United States. It's not a thing. These people do need to be held accountable. All right, so what happened today on the tariff front? Here is a highlight package, my friends.
Mr. President, is there anything China, Canada, and Mexico can do tonight to forestall your implementation of tariffs tomorrow?
No, nothing. Not right now, no.
Not a negotiating tool?
No, it's not. No, it's a pure economic. We have big deficits with, as you know, with all three of them. And in one case, they're sending massive amounts of fentanyl, killing hundreds of thousands of people a year with the fentanyl. And in the other two cases, they're making it possible for this poison to get in, number one. And number two, we have big deficits, and it's something we're doing. And we'll possibly very substantially increase it or not. We'll see how it is. But it's a lot of money coming to the United States. As you know, we have about a $200 billion deficit with Canada, getting close to $200 billion. They've treated us very unfairly. And I say, why should we be subsidizing Canada? It's wonderful. I have so many friends in Canada. It's a great place.
Is there a concession you're looking for, sir?
No, we're not looking for a concession. And we'll just see what happens. We'll see what happens. And with Mexico, it's the same thing. We have a $250 billion deficit, and we have a lot of people coming into the border, and now we've largely stopped that, but we've stopped that ourselves. I think they've done a fantastic job. You've seen the numbers, they've dropped to almost zero. But we've suffered under the past administration for years and years. We've suffered with millions of criminals coming into our country. Criminals, people from jails from all over the world. They come through Mexico, and they come through Canada too. A lot of them come through Canada, and a lot of fentanyl comes through Canada, and China makes the fentanyl. China makes the fentanyl, gives it to Mexico, puts it through Canada, puts it through different places, mostly Mexico, but also a lot through Canada. And so all three haven't treated us very well.
We're in a critical moment. as President Trump stated yesterday, he is still committed to placing tariffs on Canada starting as early as tomorrow, possibly. Now, we don't know precisely what that could look like, but I do know two things. First, if the president does choose to implement any tariffs against Canada, we're ready with a response. A purposeful, forceful, but reasonable, immediate response. It's not what we want, but if he moves forward, we will also act.
Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, said today that if the U.S. imposes tariffs, he will respond and he will not relent until the tariffs are removed. Are we seeing the start of a trade war with Canada?
I don't think so. I think the president is going to implement those tariffs tomorrow, and he will respond to Mr. Trudeau's comments in due time, I am sure.
What type of things have to happen? What does the administration need to see in order to avoid those tariffs?
Well, the tariffs are incoming tomorrow on Canada. And the reason for that is because both Canada and Mexico have allowed an unprecedented invasion of illegal fentanyl that is killing American citizens and also illegal immigrants into our country. In fact, I have more language for you right here. Canada, Mexico, and China, which, as I mentioned, President Trump will implement a 10% tariff on China, have all enabled illegal drugs to pour into America. The amount of fentanyl that has been seized at the southern border in the last 2 years alone has the potential to kill tens of millions of Americans. And so the president is intent on doing this. And I think Justin Trudeau would be wise to talk to President Trump directly before pushing outlandish comments like that to the media.
All right, you may have been hearing from the left-wing corporate media here at home and from the federal liberal government that we don't have a fentanyl problem in Canada. You're not getting any. There's no fentanyl going from Canada to the United States. What are you, crazy? Well, we're going to investigate that in just a second. In the meantime, a candidate for the leadership of the Liberal Party who has never been elected to any political office in this country spoke to the country today about these tariffs. I found this odd and ballsy and not in a good way.
President Trump thinks Canada will cave in. We will never, ever bow down to a bully. Canadians will always stick together. And we won't stand by as tariffs hurt our workers and their families. Canadians need to remain united. Now, let me be clear. This situation, unfortunately, could not be more serious. And at times like these, we need serious leadership and a serious plan. I'm ready to stand up for Canada. Who's with me?
I'm sorry, bud, but you don't speak for anybody. You don't. And I found that very presumptuous for him to say that. If Polyev had said something like that, it would still be presumptuous, but not nearly as bad as this, considering all the polling that we've seen in the past 18 to 24 months that show the Conservative Party ahead by anywhere from 20 to 30 points. Even though that lead does seem to be eroding in the past couple of weeks, ECO's polling notwithstanding. Here is Pierre Poilievre today, not talking about tariffs.
Just as I predicted, today, Mark Carney announced that he will pause Trudeau's carbon tax until after the election and then bring in a much bigger tax that has no rebate. Mr. Carney has been Justin Trudeau's economic growth advisor, who's been saying for years that not only does he support a consumer carbon tax, but that he thinks the tax must be much higher. Now, before I get into the details, let me address a little tax trick that he has planned. It's kind of clever. He's announced that he will pause the carbon tax for a few months right before the election to trick people into re-electing the Liberals. After the election, he will bring in a much bigger carbon tax when he no longer needs your vote, but still needs your money. He has said that this bigger carbon tax will only apply to businesses Well, that's how it is now. When you fill up your tank today, there's no CRA tax collector standing there waiting to collect it from you. It applies on the wholesale industry, which passes it on to the retail vendor, who pass it on to you. Now, that is what he will do again, only this time it will be a much bigger tax, and he has admitted there will be no rebate to pay you back the cost. He has called it a shadow carbon tax. Listen in.
We need to use effectively a shadow carbon price.
You know who will love this idea? President Donald Trump. Mr. Carney's new and bigger tax on Canadian lumber mills, steel mills, factories, and aluminum plants will force them to leave for the United States. Here we have the threat of U.S. sanctions on our industry. And Mark Carney thinks now is the time to hit our businesses with higher taxes? You can picture President Trump calling our businesses and telling them to move south of the border, where there is no carbon tax and where other taxes are dropping. Carbon tax Carney will give you a pause in the Liberal tax for a few months just to get through the election. And then he'll bring in the mother of all carbon taxes, a job-killing, inflationary carbon tax that will drive jobs into the hands of President Trump. My common sense plan will axe the tax for everyone forever. I'll also axe the sales tax on home building to save you up to 50 grand on a new home. Finally, we'll cut income taxes so hard work pays off. We'll cut bureaucracy, consultants, corporate welfare, foreign aid, and other ways to save the money that can bring down your taxes and our country's debt. We must immediately pass a massive bring-it-home tax cut on work, investment, energy, home building, and making stuff in Canada. Canada first, Canada last, Canada always. Let's bring it home.
Didn't say anything about tariffs. He needs to say something about tariffs and not what he said earlier this week. Yeah, we got to go dollar for dollar with the United States. We will get crushed if that's the case. Okay, so let's go through this. And this is a bad story from left-wing corporate global. I'm sorry, guys. It's the only one that I could find. Trump's tariffs on Canada coming. How soon could prices rise? By the way, the oil tariff is going to be 10%. Now, we're hearing it's not going to come in tomorrow. It's going to come in a couple of weeks' time. But there will be a tariff on oil exports or imports to the United States. Exports from Canada. There will be a tariff on oil at 10%, not 25%. But I've heard it might not be coming in for a couple of weeks, and then again, it could be coming in as early as tomorrow. At showtime tonight, that was still unclear. Anyway, with Ottawa expected to respond with retaliatory tariffs, how long will it take before we feel the impact on the foods and items we purchase? The impact could be immediate depending on the sector, said David Dinesh, the CEO of Alliance Trade in Canada, a company that specializes in supply trade insurance. He added there are concerns that any oil and gas tariffs will result in potential increases in gas prices in the United States by 75 cents a gallon. Therefore, any transportation costs for goods coming into Canada from the USA would be impacted. Companies need to pass on the increases, especially for lower margin products. On Thursday, Trump said Canadian oil and gas may or may not be included in the tariffs, but it will be. Tom Nagayan, economist at RSM Canada, said Canada's retaliatory tariffs could also have an impact on prices. The impact will vary widely based on several factors, including which goods are included, whether there are Canadian substitutes, and how much of the tariffs are passed on to consumers if Canada retaliates. And we will, it looks like. Prices of many U.S. imports would jump. Sylvanus Afasokbar. Try and say that name 3 times fast. Huh? A professor of agri-food trade and policy at the University of Guelph said Canadians will feel the impact of tariffs on grocery store shelves fairly quickly. And it's going to be mostly on non-perishables. We import about 60% of our food from the U.S. If we impose reiterated tariff, it means the price of food is going to go up by the amount of the tariff, 25%. He said it's going to get costlier on some grocery stuffs a lot faster. He says goods that have no close Canadian substitutes and are perishable would see the increases first. Fruits and vegetables, which Canada imports quite a bit in the winter months, businesses cannot stock up on perishables the way they do with non-perishables. Therefore, the impact would be felt almost right away. I wonder if maybe you should rush out to the grocery store. Well, you still have time before it closes tonight because these tariffs, and I'm not sure if the grocery stores are going to respond right away, too. They're going to have to reprice everything. But then again, they're working on product that they've already got tariff-free, at least for now. But what they did say during COVID, as I recall, if there was ever a rush on food, toilet paper, that kind of thing at a grocery store, any one grocery store is stocked enough if they receive no shipments of anything to last, depending on traffic, moderate traffic, 3 to 5 days. And then that'd be it. So in 3 to 5 days from the time these tariffs go into effect tomorrow, we're going to start seeing some increases. Now, the Canadian government has been saying that we don't have any fentanyl here. It's not getting across the U.S. border. How dare Trump say that? It's all coming from Mexico. They got like thousands and thousands of pounds from Mexico. This is only what's been found from Mexico in the last 5 years. But Canada, 40 pounds. What's that? Nothing. It's nothing. Well, maybe it's because these fentanyl labs are allowed to operate with impunity. And maybe they're not getting checked at the borders. And what's the reason for that? And this is why Trump has had a bee in his bonnet about our border situation. Because the fentanyl comes from China, and Canada's border, at least the equipment used at Canada's border, comes from China. We covered this a little bit in the show last night with Wayne Peters from What's Up Canada. So here's a story that's back from December 22nd, CBC story. Drug super labs leave a toxic mess. Some say BC's cleanup rules are a mess too. What? Drug super labs? We don't have those here. RCMP in BC have spent around $2 million to remove chemicals from drug labs in the last 5 years. Okay, let's hang on to that for just a second. This story from left-wing corporate Global News goes back to 2020, from July of 2020. Canadian minister promises review after security contracts awarded to Chinese state tech company. Okay, so Trump knows who controls our border, and it's not Canada. Canada's Minister of Foreign Affairs, and again, this goes back almost 5 years now, has promised to review Ottawa's purchasing of security equipment as details emerge of 5 contracts awarded to a controversial high-tech company that's connected to the highest levels of the Chinese Communist Party. You guys get that? This week, which is 5 years ago, Ottawa posted details of the latest winning bid for Beijing-based New Tech in a deal to install X-ray scanning equipment and software to provide security for 170 Canadian embassies, consulates, and high commissions worldwide. Newtek was reportedly founded in 1997 by the son of former Chinese President Hu Jintao, and the security company has rapidly accumulated contracts worldwide for sensitive airport and border security infrastructure, while attracting criticism for alleged unfair business practices and allegations of corruption in Africa. According to the National Post, which first reported last 5 years ago on Newtek's new deal with Global Affairs Canada, the July 2020 contract has an estimated value of $6.8 million. Documents do not confirm that figure, but confirm a contract award date of July the 15th. So listen to this. Global News has found that already since 2017, Newtek has been awarded 4 border security and customs warehouse contracts valued at $6.5 million to provide scanners and lab equipment to Canada Border Services Agency, according to procurement documents. The Minister of Foreign Affairs said he would review Ottawa's purchasing of security equipment That review never happened. How do I know that? Because I scoured the internet for an hour looking for something that resembled any kind of review on the purchase of border equipment from China. Canada could not find a thing. Now, here's something that, what's his name? The Bureau. Sam Cooper used to be with Global News. Now he's got his own thing called The Bureau. He put this up on his Substack yesterday or early today. Exclusive briefings to Liberal government on Chinese infiltration of Vancouver Port and Canada's opioid scourge ignored. We don't have any opioids here. Trump tariffs loom as critics decry Ottawa's fox in the henhouse approach to border security. Now, this is a very old document, so let's go ahead and read this. As Donald Trump readies sweeping tariffs against Canada tomorrow, citing Ottawa's failure to secure its shared North American borders from fentanyl originating in China, the Bureau has obtained a remarkable December 1999 document from a senior law enforcement official revealing Ottawa's long-standing negligence in securing Vancouver's port against drug trafficking linked to Chinese shipping entities. The letter, drafted by former Crown Prosecutor Scott Newark and addressed to Ottawa's Security Intelligence Review Committee, urged the body to reconsider explosive findings from a leaked RCMP and CSIS report detailing infiltration of Canada's porous borders by Chinese criminal networks. Titled CIRC Review in relation to Project Sidewinder, Newark's letter alleges systemic failures that enable Chinese state council-owned shipping giant COSCO, not Costco, COSCO, and triads, that's the Chinese gangs, with suspected Chinese military ties to penetrate Vancouver's port system. He further asserts that federal authorities ignored repeated briefings and warnings from Canadian law enforcement, warnings based on intelligence gathered by Canadian officials in Hong Kong who initiated the Sidewinder review. Newark also warned that at this time, 1999, right, Liberal Prime Minister Jean Chrétien's decision to dismantle Canada's specialized ports police and privatize national port control had left the country dangerously exposed to foreign criminal networks, noting he had personally briefed the Canadian government on these concerns as early as 1996. Addressing his letter to CIRC's chair, Quebec lawyer Paul Gauthier, Newark wrote, "As the former executive officer through 94-98 of the Canadian Police Association, I was assigned responsibility for dealing with the issue of the federal government's changes to control of the national ports and policing therein. This involved close examination on matters like drugs, weapons, and people smuggling through the national ports, and in particular, both the growing presence of organized criminal groups at ports and the ominous hazard control of those ports by such groups represented. Are we infested with Chinese gangs in Canada? Sure sounds like it." Newark's letter goes on to allege widespread failures in Ottawa that facilitated Chinese triad infiltration of Vancouver's port, revealing federal authorities' reluctance to act on warnings from RCMP officer Gary Clement and Immigration Control Officer Brian McAdam, former Canadian officials based in Hong Kong who had sounded the alarm, prompting the Sidewinder review. You don't think Donald Trump knows this? Of course he knows this. Newark explained to CIRC's chair that during his tenure as executive officer of the Canadian Police Association, he prepared approximately 50 detailed policy briefs for the government and regularly appeared before parliamentary committees and in private ministerial briefings. I can assure you that in all of that time, no clearer warning was ever given by Canada's rank-and-file police officers to the national government than what was done in our unsuccessful attempt to prevent the disbandment of the Specialized Canada Ports Police in combination with the privatization of the ports themselves, Newark's letter to CIRC states. The letter continues, noting that in October of 1996, Newark met with Chrétien's Transport Minister, David Anderson, later addressing the Transport Committee to highlight the imminent threat posed by Asian organized crime's infiltration of port operations. Newark's written briefing to the minister underscored the gravity of the situation with a blunt question: who exactly are the commercial port operators? Citing the Anderson briefing document, Newark's letter to Cirque states that Anderson had been warned. We are, for example, aware of serious concerns amongst the international law enforcement community surrounding the ownership of ports and container industries in Asia, and in particular Hong Kong, Taiwan, and the People's Republic of China. There is simply no longer any doubt that drugs like heroin, and again, this is 1999, so now it's fentanyl, are coming from these destinations through the Port of Vancouver, moved by organized criminal gangs whose assets include legitimate properties. Nothing has changed. Harper, now Trudeau, Paul Martin, none of them did anything to fix that port. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this video, shocking video. It's only about 14 minutes long. I can play it twice for you. Of a young girl in Vancouver screaming at the top of her lungs that there's people in those containers. Watch that.
Fuck that port! There's people screaming in there every night! I've heard it for myself! The city's trying to cover it up, trying to get everybody out of here because they know there's people in those fucking bins!
Let's go back to the beginning of that. Screaming at the top of her lungs. She's heard it for herself. She says, I'd like to track her down. I'd like to talk to her.
Fuck that port! There's people screaming in there every night! I've heard it for myself! The city's trying to cover it up, trying to get everybody out of here because they know there's people in those fucking bins!
I know it's tough to believe, right? This is Canada, man. We're nice. We don't have this stuff. For anybody who lives in a small town watching this show right now, this is like beyond grasp of reality. You know, I'll tell you this. I live in Winnipeg. You guys know this. It's a city of 900,000 people. It's not huge. It's not tiny. Its downtown is degraded so badly that I now feel concerned. I'm not going to say scared, but I feel concerned walking down there because you don't know who's just going to jump out from some dark corner and jab you with a needle or stab you with a knife and take whatever you happen to have on you. Nobody wants to go downtown. The Jets play downtown. That's where their home arena is. And I can tell you this, people don't like going down there, even for Jets games. I can't imagine what downtown Vancouver is like. I don't know about Edmonton. I don't know. Well, Calgary seems cleaner, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't lived there in 25 years. Toronto, it's got some seedy areas. Montreal's got some seedy areas. The bigger the city, the bigger the seedy area. We don't know what happens in these seedy areas. But we know that fentanyl deaths are through the roof. And now people smuggling? There's people in those freaking bins. She's screaming at the top of her lungs. Who is that girl? Find her. We need to find her. And the guy taking that video, chuckling. Just living in the matrix, man. Not understanding reality. But anyway, the reason I got into that tonight is simply because Donald Trump knows all of this. He knows this is all going on in Canada, and that's why he was asking for stricter border controls, not just on ports of entry. You know, that's how we think of it, right? Well, port of entry, I go through Pembina and Emerson, and I go through Buffalo and Niagara Falls, and I go through Detroit, Windsor. No. Ports, man. Shipping ports, airports, how this stuff gets here. That's what he wants tightened up. Cargo. And what do? They put a bunch of game wardens at the border. There was a press conference the other day. Premier Wab Kinew of Manitoba standing. You know how politicians stand at a podium? They got the microphone in front of them. They got people behind them all the time. Well, there were 5 game wardens standing behind Wab Kinew. And I thought, what? Each one of them gets 200 miles? drive back and forth looking for some illegals or maybe a bag of white powder. Come on, man. One more thing before I go tonight. By the way, I'm sorry, you guys, All Access members, I don't have an extension for you tonight. I do have to be someplace. A friend of mine is coming in from out of town, landing at the airport at 9:30, so I promised I would go meet him at 10 o'clock. Because he's got to leave tomorrow morning, so I haven't got a lot of time here. One last thing from the government of Canada. They have announced that they're deferring the implementation of the change to the capital gains inclusion rate. Obviously, this is because of the upcoming election. Oh, we can't be seen to raise taxes right now. Absolutely not. So we're going to defer this. When we're not in power, we're going to defer this to next year and let the Conservatives worry about it. So the thing is that Revenue Canada, I believe, had already started trying to collect this, or we're preparing to. So what the hell's going on? This is not a serious country that we live in. I love you all. I appreciate you all. And I will catch you guys. Oh, Monday night. This is actually going to be kind of a fun show because we've got a politician coming on Monday night who's not really a politician at all. He's a business owner. He's a regular guy like us. I had lunch with him last week. His name is Wally Doddridge. And Wally is running for the leadership of the Progressive Conservative Party of Manitoba. And his only competitor is a guy called Abi Khan, for those of you who live outside of Manitoba. I think Wally's going to win. He's just a regular guy. And I played a clip of him the other night, just talking. He's not polished. You know, he doesn't speak in sound bites. He's just a dude. And I think it would be one of the coolest things. And he believes as we believe, just so you're aware. It would be one of the coolest things if a guy like this won the leadership of one of the two major parties in Manitoba and then went on to win somehow and become premier. Now, that's a long shot, and that's still a few years away. But Wally joins the show on Monday night. You guys have a great weekend, and I will catch you then. I love you all. I appreciate you all, and I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.